All right. Well, here we are. We are heading upon the holidays, already in some holidays. It is Monday, the 22nd, and I have with me Dan Aldridge, Director of Marketing with PCS. So really thrilled to have you, Dan, the ERP doctor. We'll go ahead and just give some quick intros here too. I am Amy Kamnick. I am VP of Marketing here at Aleran Software. And we are going to talk about today our latest Built to Sell report, which I'm really excited about. It's volume 3 of a 3-part series. Some really interesting findings and interesting and practical implications too for how manufacturers go to market this year and beyond. So Dan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm Dan Aldridge. I am the Director of Marketing at PCG. We are partners of both Infor Global Solutions and NetSuite. I'm a career ERP guy, hence the name. But I'm recently getting into all kinds of new technologies like e-commerce and CPQ and MES and so on. So I'm about 25 years in the ERP and all of those other solutions business.
Excellent. All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. We're going to make this pretty conversational. So any questions we can certainly have via chat. They are welcome. We're going to go through, what is the Built to Sell in case you're hearing or seeing about it for the first time. We'll talk about some of the key trends that we're seeing as part of it, including in the 2 previous volumes, kind of the state of systems, and then top trends that we saw from this latest volume 3. And we'll talk through questions, and then definitely stay on for those of you who join or even after the fact. We have a really great giveaway lined up. So perfect timing here if you need any last minute gifts. All right, so I'll just share a little background about the Aleran Built to Sell report. So we launched this in September with volume 1, but it actually started back in July and even before that. And the reason being is we at Aleran were really interested in understanding, since we serve mid-sized B2B manufacturers with complex products and pricing and sales processes, we were really interested in learning how they are selling today, how they're quoting today, what's working, what's not working, and what are they really eyeing for the future, especially with AI feeling like rapid adoption and changes in the last year. We know and also saw and are seeing with our own product as it evolves, an increased appetite. So we wanted to also really learn about, beyond the stats, how are manufacturers looking at AI beyond the production floor and their quoting and selling? How are they actually implementing it, and in what instances? So as I mentioned, we surveyed 200 US-based mid-sized B2B manufacturers. I also did interviews over the past 6 months with about 24 different leaders, including manufacturers, including agency leaders, including ERP consultants. So all of those who are closely connected to and part of that manufacturing go-to-market ecosystem. And so, as I mentioned, this is the 3rd in this series. As you get a copy of the recording as a follow-up, I'll be including links to all of the previous volumes as well, including this most recent one. Okay, so a little bit what we learned in the first volume 1 that we released back in September, that the state of quoting is really hindering growth. 86% of the manufacturers we surveyed told us that their manual quoting today has cost them deals. And then on average, that's costing them 5% in revenue leakage, even as high as 15%. So Dan, I know that these stats from when we talked about them and I had interviewed you for this report, it wasn't surprising for you. Can you share a little bit more about what you typically see?
No, I mean, I'm surprised it's as low as 86, to be honest, or at least that they would admit. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of very sophisticated manufacturers, some of them even bigger, like a Carrier or somebody like that. And a lot of them have I mean, they're basically dealing in paper and spreadsheets and configuration logic that's built into a sheet, for example. And it's quite a long process, as you would imagine, to turn out one of those. It's probably pretty prone to error, right? Because they're probably frequently going to the engineers and trying to work out this is the configuration, and then there's potential for mistakes there. If they have some other system like a PDM or PLM or whatever, then you've got different interfaces to think about and data being updated in different places. So it definitely is a very high percentage of even pretty sophisticated manufacturers doing largely manual quoting. The ability here, and it's, as you can imagine, I mean, it's not just lost deals, it's mistakes, it's time, and all of those sorts of things. So that this -5 revenue leakage is actually, I think that's probably a little bit, I would say that's probably low. Depends on, of course, the size and the sophistication and the complication of the quoting process, of course. But I would say that would be, yeah, it's quite a lot in terms of revenue leakage and also in lost deals, because anybody who has this kind of software like Aleran is able to do it online, and it's able to do it with a self-service type portal with a customer entering data that would give them a quote back. So it's a lot more efficient, a lot faster, lower cost, less potential for lost deals.
Yeah, the error is pretty significant, and I think this is another series of stats as we go through that we saw in the report and the results is, this complex approval process. So you talked about the spreadsheets and the workarounds and how that quoting happens. I've heard job sheets, any number of things. And in a lot of cases, folks I've talked with, their process hasn't changed in 15, 20 years. Because it's kind of been a little bit of, what's not completely broke, we don't need to fix. And at the same time, they also know it's not working, but they're not totally sure how to fix it. But they do know that the complex approval process is really a hindrance. And then you see some other pieces here, as Dan had talked about, with manual data entry errors. So I would love to hear, Dan, you've been so close to that approval process and how complex it is and what you see. Could you kind of walk us through what is pretty commonplace?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of back and forth between the various departments, right? So like your engineering, it might even involve production people to say, you've got a bill of materials that looks like this. Is that really possible? A lot of times within an ERP system, you don't have any configuration logic also. So it's not coming as a configured product that takes into account constraints. If I choose this feature, then I've only got these options, for instance, right? So you might have errors like that. You might have back and forth with the engineers. The engineers say that's not possible, or you got to change the bill of material to be like this. And then the production people say, no, we can't build it like that. And we have revisions and all kinds of things like that. So there's a kind of a back and forth that takes time, also introduces errors in the process. And having that online configuration that a customer can see, it makes it much more transparent. It also makes it much faster. And things like insufficient pricing flexibility. Well, that's probably within the ERP itself, right? So if you're using the ERP to do the quoting process, and then doing the sales order through there, then it's going to be very inflexible with the pricing process. And a salesperson might see a price there and go, there's no way that price is for that component or whatever, right? So they might go back and say, there's no way this configuration is going to work. That pricing is not right. That pricing is inflexible too. So.
Yeah, especially with with discounts applied and the review process for that, it's challenging. One thing that was interesting to me too is in terms of top priorities to modernize sales and reduce costs. We'll talk more about the CPQ, but this configure to order, configure price quoting, we saw an absolute common theme in this. And one person I had interviewed is a owner of a digital marketing and go-to-market agency that works exclusively with mid-sized manufacturers. And he had a real interesting perspective here on, that quoting is so key, and often not enough attention is paid to it given its role in the customer journey. So to see over 50% planning to invest here, he felt like that was a really strong indication of how manufacturers are recognizing how important quoting is to the customer journey. And then we'll talk too about digital product catalogs, but I'd love to get your perspective on, what you think about when you see, where folks are planning to prioritize their investments.
Well, I think, you've got a situation where the pricing has become so key right now, getting that accurate because of margins are declining, supply costs gone up, supply chain problems, all kinds of things like that are kind of pressing the margins. So you really got to get that quoting process correct and the pricing correct in order to ensure your margins. Because you could be selling something with a manual quoting process that arrives, 2 weeks later that's completely out of line, and you can lose your shirt on that thing, that was configured manually. So things like catalogs being online is a huge thing also, because a lot of times the catalogs are paper, right? They're paper or spreadsheets that a salesperson or the customer would have to consult. If those digital catalogs are online for the customer to access directly, they don't have to worry about that. It's right. The information is right there, right? And it's part of the configuration process at those prices. So it's transparent and it's available online and it's quick to configure. So go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to build on that catalog piece, Dan, that yes, I've certainly seen the Bible-like books with folks, especially when I'm out at shows. I'll see different reps have them on the tables. And I think about, for these digital product catalogs, we're talking about more than PDFs here. We're talking about dynamic digital product catalogs that have that dynamic pricing, that are fully integrated. And also, we'll talk more about this too, as this came up as a top trend for go-to-market, is being found in search. There's limitations with PDFs. And we're beyond search engine optimization. We now have generative engine optimization, or just called geo or AI search,
or whatever it's called.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So that is a good segue into the top 3 trends. So for those of you that have seen or are going to consume Volume 3, these were really 3 trends that we saw, and really knitting together to indicate this predictive, connected future of selling and quoting. So we're going to talk first about personalization and AI guided selling. We'll also talk about B2B marketplace growth and what we're seeing for portals. And then, as we were just segueing from AI search optimized product discovery and the role of digital product catalogs to that end. So what we mean by predictive commerce and predictive selling is really this shift, and we definitely see this in the data for where people are moving and leaning into and investing is current state and before disconnected systems that make it really difficult, right? The data gets stale, it gets old, so it's really hard to use it then to predict for demand planning and sales forecasting. And so this shift now of integrating these systems, leaning into AI, and layering on other technology that adds simplicity versus complexity to be able to just sell and quote that much and price that much smarter. So you can anticipate buyer trends, anticipate that demand planning, the pricing updates automatically, lead times, e-commerce, being able to use suggestive selling to recommend products at different points of their buying process when it's online. Certainly sales folks are able to do that too. It just through that self-service makes it that much easier and faster to increase that order value when people are able to see those additional opportunities as they are in shopping mode and research mode. So Dan, I'd love to hear too, anything that stands out to you about this or what you're seeing as well with your clients in the overall industry?
Yeah, I mean, it's been it probably B2B manufacturers have not really had this capability in the past, right? It's been pretty much B2C in the
Mm-hmm.
past, in the pricing and things like that, and being able to anticipate. You got a manual RFQ that comes in, right? An RFQ or
Mm-hmm.
RFP says, build this and deliver this many on this date, and then it's a manual process to have a spreadsheet that allows you to deliver on that RFQ, right, or RFP.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the pricing updates come once a year when the
Mm-hmm.
buyers go in and they put their new prices in, and they do it based on costs, which have changed, but they're updated once a year. Their standards update and things like that. This is just so many things that are making manufacturers in particular be significantly behind the curve when it comes to this, right? As opposed to B2C, right? So B2C is easy, right? You just pick it off a catalog or maybe very simple configuration, and then you've got your widget, right? But these are manufacturers putting these things out. So they just haven't had access to this kind of technology in the past.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you drew us in, right? Because we do
Yep.
CPQ, and another point that I wanted to make about the CPQ part is that CPQ is available for various ERP vendors have CPQ
Mm-hmm.
tools with them, but they're generally rather expensive. They also are available for complex products. But what if your product is an assemble to order, not
Mm-hmm.
terribly complex, like windows, for example, right? Windows and doors. That there's various configurations, but your engine within here, which comes with on Aleran, would be sufficient to configure everything and present it and push the sales orders. Also, the sales orders go through an interface into the
Mm-hmm.
ERP, which is something that hadn't been available in the past for manufacturers, and our
Mm-hmm.
customers are mid-level manufacturers as well, right? Our customers are your customers. So,
Mm-hmm.
I feel their pain. And when I saw this, you guys hooked me in right away, especially with the customer portal, the customer
Mm-hmm.
portal that you built in like 10 minutes. I was
Yep.
like, okay, this is good stuff.
Mm. That's great to hear. I know I was talking with one of our customers, and he's quoted in the report from Badger Plug, and he was saying a trend that he's seen, and I've heard this from others too. I spoke with is with the generational changes and people retiring and this shift and new people. Of course, this cycle is always happening of retirements, new people coming into the workforce. But what he and others have pointed out is in this last like 5 years, and now as you look in the next like 5 years, we're just at this point in terms of that transition where you're having a lot of institutional knowledge leave, and newer, less seasoned people who are ramping up who don't have that level of tribal knowledge, of course, because or institutional knowledge that they haven't been there, and then the documentation. So um, it is really enabling a lot of efficiency and helping both on the buyer end and internally on the sales team end, because it helps the sales team, especially those who are less seasoned, to be able to work with those buyers. And then those buyers who may need a little bit more help in hand holding, they're more enabled to be able to do that with these tools, with integration and with this process, versus having it live with one, two, or a few people or in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and you have a lot of ordering that's happening if the customers are putting in their own information that results in a quote that comes automatically that you can drill down on, that you can approve online. Those are things that not necessarily eliminate people, but definitely makes the process much more efficient. And if you have less people, because those people are like me and they're older people that have institutional knowledge, we're retiring. And, something like this is a tool that can automate a lot of that work. Now, the where the people that are seasoned that have industry knowledge can come in is configuration, right? They understand the configuration, they understand the pricing, they understand the catalogs, all of those things that need to be put into the system. But we're talking weeks, we're not talking years for sure. We're not even talking months probably to implement something like this. And then if you got customers doing a lot of the work because they can do it all online. You don't need necessarily institutional knowledge that goes down. I got to run down and grab the engineer and get the shop floor guy over there and, start redlining a paper quote and stuff like that, right? You don't need that, which is really good.
Yeah. And that's one thing I heard too of this automation, digitizing, and AI really helping to take out, like you said, that like manual work, that back and forth, that salesperson can really spend more time sourcing more deals, building the relationships, adding some more consultative value to maximize their time and impact on the bottom line. Another, as we look through here, and I think this goes into what you're saying too, Dan, 55% saying that digital quoting, including CPQ, is a priority plan investment, and 34% saying that an increased use of CPQ software will have the biggest impact on how their company finds and sells to new customers. This 34%, to be honest, like I was expecting a double, a good number, but this was even higher than what I was expecting, to be honest, when I first put the survey together. So I love your perspective as you were just talking through of as you work with the ERPs as well, of how you see what the ERP was designed for here. We see a lot of ERPs that have fantastic CPQs like Infor, and how all of this can work together when you have that kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think ERP was ever designed to do even quoting. if you get right down to it. It was designed to enter a sales order, and it was designed to have preset information such as a bill of material, a routing. All those things are in the ERP. But I think what the CPQ brings additional is that whole configuration logic, being able to do things online as opposed to, manual offline, and having accurate data. I mean, that's a huge thing because in the previous slide, you mentioned pricing, being able to price and update costs. I mean, cost updates alone, like I said, I mean, it could be an annual process. It's so far out of date, and you have supply chain issues that drive up prices. Maybe the price of a raw material doubles in that time frame between when you set it and when you set it again at the end of the year. Completely changes the margins, right? You could lose the margins. You could go negative and not even know it, right? Because of the cost of the inputs. So I would say having a software like this really improves the data, and that's not something that we should lose track of, right? We think in terms of processes, and we know how efficient that is going to make in terms of processes, but we also should think about the accuracy of data, right? And if you're sending something from a tool like this into the ERP, into a sales order, or into a quote, and then into a sales order, all that data is right? Because assuming you got it right from the get-go, right? But there's no rekeying, there's no nightmare like that. I mean, a salesperson, that's why CRM is so popular working with ERP, right? Because salesperson doesn't want to touch the ERP. They want to live in CRM all day long. Well, make it even better. They don't have to touch CRM, because now you've got this CPQ engine out here that could enter orders and have the customers get quotes without them ever touching the ERP or even a CRM. CRM wasn't really meant to do this either. Salesforce would say, oh, you can just use CRM for that. Well, some of it, yes, some of it, no, right? So like the configuration logic, you're going to have to really program Salesforce or some CRM to get that. And this is right out of the box. So I love it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And as we think about, and this gets into AI too, and the data, the power of being able to have that CPQ and then layer on a customer, a sales friendly, a buyer friendly configurator, as you mentioned, that can really connect, layer with that data. So it's not replacing what engineering needs, but it can be so smart, including with AI, to pull from the ERP that fed data from the CPQ in the BOM to get that much more accurate upfront, without having to go through system by system. And from an AI perspective too, as we look at it, I think an interesting part that I've seen too in the data is people have really been piloting, experimenting, and now as we look ahead to 2026, 2027, they've already started and have very clear plans for implementing what AI looks like as part of their quoting and selling in the front office. It's not just in the back office in terms of production. It is in the forefront. And so seeing that in the front office get some of these investments, that also is really great to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think the AI obviously is pervading everything. And if you use it for suggestive and predictive actions on the front, and maybe this is a question to you, actually, I don't know exactly how Aleran is working in this case, but my guess is that it can do things like suggestive selling, right? To say, you bought this part, you might want to buy this part, and you might get a bundled price if you buy this and this and this. that type of logic could probably be built in, is my guess, but that makes that kind of coded in AI actions that can happen right in the front.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Dan. A couple of things. Yes, and yes. So we had recently launched our suggestive selling and recommended selling. So to your point, it can bring it up front during that ordering process. So when someone's looking at a product, they can see additional recommended products or like products when they're getting ready to check out. They can also see it. We also have our AI sales assistant that works like an extension of the team that, to your point too, is connected with the ERP and trained on that data. So when people are, say, on your site and they have questions about maybe a part, say, that is best for a machine that they had bought, instead of calling customer service, which in some cases will handle those, reorders or parts, or the sales rep, they can get that information up front, and then also have another touch point there of additional recommended products. So it definitely helps with that education. It helps too of just with the customer, democratizing the information and not having to wait to talk to somebody. I mean, we all want to talk to some, well, I should say most of us do, right? Especially in
It's,
this area
it's
where it's so complex. You don't want to leave it up
Yep.
completely just to AI or automation. And that's not the intent of Aleran. Certainly, it's to remove the friction or the roadblocks to
Mhm.
empower both sides, the buyers and the sellers, to just get to what they need faster.
Yeah, it's a much more guided experience, a much more
Hmm.
customized experience that's going to please your customers. And
Yes.
for the ones that don't really want a salesperson there sitting there, they can go through the portal, right? I mean, or
Yeah.
they can call or whatever they want to do, but they can kind of engage with the sales force however they want to. And I would also say in the case of distributors with manufacturers, right? So a lot of their customers are distributors. So for a distributor, it would be a very nice thing to be able to order parts and things, let's say,
Hmm.
for their finished goods. They can order parts from you if you're a manufacturer. And that's not something that a salesperson really necessarily has to be involved in.
Hmm.
And then again, if there's an AI agent sitting there, the AI agent said, well, you bought this part, you better have this part or the thing's going to fall apart. So an AI agent can do things like that, but it has to be approved. So that's where you get your human in the loop. And
Hmm.
it is very important for the experience. I mean, I see so many of these kind of like sales agents run amok now. And it's like, I'm like, no, I want to get out of chat. I want to talk to a human being. Maybe I'm old school like that, but I want to have a human contact. Now, does the human have to be doing my whole order? No,
Hmm.
but the human should know that, hey, there's something that kicked out, or there's something about me as a customer right over there on the right in the Copilot or whatever it is, right? To
Hmm.
say, this is something about me that makes your customer service better,
Yes.
right?
Hmm. And that personalization, we definitely see as one of the top three trends as we go ahead, and that I've certainly seen and heard. To date, with the current state of systems, it's hard to deliver that, certainly at scale, and to orchestrate it across channels. So AI playing a key role definitely through that guided experience.
Mhm.
I think too, you brought up portals, and as we see, we've certainly seen a trend here. We can see a planned top investment as well, and you gave the good example of with the distributor. Um, as we think about like the future of portals, I know we've talked about here, and as we're looking forward, of a fully digitized customer experience where that portal experience is so personalized, where you can do that one-stop shop beyond the aftermarket part ordering, or beyond initiating the order or getting a configuration for the quote. You could also see service history, and certainly you can and do have ability in today's state with Aleran to personalize each of those marketplaces and those portals for different pricing, different branding, promotions, etc. So, helping the buyer and the customer feel known, and that the manufacturer cares through that feeling known is how that often translates.
Mhm.
When you see, Dan, that trend in personalization and orchestration today, where do you see that typically falls short and is really hard for manufacturers to be able to deliver?
I think that for ones that don't have a tool like this, they're interfacing with their ERPs, and they're
Mm,
not good tools for this process. In some cases, they might have like an older style configurator,
mm-hmm,
where they can actually do like a configure to order type process or whatever, but it's all text based. It doesn't have the pictures and the drawings and things like that.
mm-hmm,
And it doesn't have any online interaction, like being
mm-hmm,
able to see a quote, approve the quote, things like that. So I think there's just without a tool like this, I think some people will, or some companies will rely on a Salesforce or something like that, a CRM,
mm-hmm.
to give them at least a piece of this. But in some cases, they would even have to customize that, and it's interfaced, maybe automatically interfaced, maybe manually interfaced, some aspects of what comes out of CRM or whatever, working with the ERP. So, yeah, that's what I see.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is very exciting to me, really. I mean, and that's the self-service aspect out of it. I mean, I see some kinds of statistics that, probably upwards of 90% of people don't want to talk to a
Yeah.
salesperson until they've made their decision, essentially, right? So the sale in that case, salesperson is an order taker in that case, and they would
Mm-hmm.
prefer probably not dealing with the salesperson at some point, which is sad for salespeople, but I can understand it. I can understand it, right? So I think digital commerce, digital e-commerce, and things like Shopify, WooCommerce, you probably you don't compete with those so much because those are more B2C, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a niche B2B specifically for manufacturers. So I think you really got something here. And I think that definitely that's the trend. And I'm thinking about putting it in my top 10 ERP trends for next
Oh,
year.
awesome.
I think
You
that
know,
would be a good thing to have.
yeah, yeah, I do. And I would say, to build on that, we actually do sometimes see, um, say, WooCommerce or Shopify being used by, mid-sized manufacturers in B2B. But to your point, um, it where we have come in some instances after they've explored different options is because those other platforms aren't meant for B2B. And they're certainly not meant for manufacturers. So I'll just give you a quick example. I was at the Sightline User Network conference last year, and I met this head of IT for this manufacturer in Greenville, North Carolina. I think
Mhm.
it's North Carolina or South Carolina, North Carolina. Great. So they do highly configurable products, and I don't want to say too much to potentially give, but they had implemented a platform like the one you had mentioned, some different options, and they were expecting that to perform at 30% of revenue each month. And they were finding it was only hitting around 8% because of the limitations that they were able to have in the
Configuration.
number of configurations.
Yeah. There you go.
And so that was hindering them as a result. So it got them that step of being able to be online. But when it came down to the day-to-day for their business, it just didn't have the infrastructure there that they really needed.
Yep, that's what I would expect out of that kind of system. And I have seen it used very well, but
Mm-hmm.
basically, for like eyeglasses and stuff like that. And
Sure.
even in eyeglasses, a customer that I had struggled a bit with WooCommerce because they had some custom configurations in their, eyeglass. You wouldn't think had that many variations, but they had quite a few. So they struggled a little bit with it. I think they made it work, but it required some custom coding to get it to
Mhm.
behave like they wanted it to. But this is the kind of thing out of the box is working, so it's much faster. It's just kind of choosing the options and features and
Yes.
things like that, more like that rather than coding.
Well, and as we go to this piece too, but you bring up the customization and the coding. I mean, everything today, right? People are doing more with less. And there's, in some cases, some truth, some perception that, well, AI can do that, right? But it is really an opportunity and challenge as we go ahead to be able to be thoughtful about what that future looks like and for planning those products and how what you want that overall buyer experience to be, including from being started when you're found. And this kind of ties into that digital product catalog that we were talking about earlier, where we're seeing, chat searches in chat GPT and AI as a whole, are not at the level of, say, the SEO searches in Google. However, they're rapidly gaining ground.
Growing, yeah.
And we're seeing that across the board in different, cases for, zero-click searches, right? Where people look up in ChatGPT, for example, or Gemini or whatever platform of choice. And then they're figuring out where they're going to go next and they go there first. So that's where we hear and see of just how important that shift to those big printed stacks of catalogs to even the PDFs to truly optimized content that can be found at the right time in the right place as people are looking. And then, the manufacturers get insight into what those prompts are that people are looking up. And that can also then help inform their SEO strategy, their content strategy, their
Oh,
paid
that's nice.
strategy.
Mhm.
There's a lot that they can gain from just knowing those prompts and having that optimization. What are you seeing here as in terms of how people are looking at this transition and looking at AI and search as part of essentially like being more discoverable?
I'm looking at people are using AI to bypass the normal paths, like a website, for instance. So even if you have a website that's converts very well in the SEO world, it doesn't necessarily in the AI world as it gets more and more. So that kind of way of bypassing is something you have to deal with. It's coming. You have to deal with it, right? So you have to have all your stuff online. It's not going to comb, the AI is not going to comb your PDFs. It's not going to, right? It's limited in that way. It's not going to, and if it goes directly to the answer and you're not part of the answer, then you're on the outside.
Yeah.
Basically. So I think in general, it's a good trend. And when you have it inside and you're able to give insights to your customers about what people are ordering, how they're researching your site, things like that, which it sounds like you can do. That's very valuable. That's very valuable information. And you sort of, because the SEO rules is build up your website and put tags on it and, keywords and, this and that. But if that's not, capturing people that are searching in a different way, then you have to adapt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to be able to enable all that we talked about and going to market shifts in the next year and the next is this piece of integration where we see so much system disconnection today. And I'm sure you do. Especially, I know we certainly do on our end. And so seeing that 73%, almost 3/4 are prioritizing integration. And that just 10% have their CPQ linked to their ERP today. I mean, some of these stats I kind of anticipated coming in, and some I was a little surprised by, and I'm heartened to see this focus and recognition of how key this integration is to be able to help internal teams, help buyers, and overall just improve the bottom line and maximize these investments that are significant.
If you have CPQ, that's 10% link their CPQ to their ERP. That sounds terribly low to me. I don't know. If they're buying a CPQ from their ERP vendor, it can't be that low, but it sounds like they're probably buying something separate and then trying to interface it to their ERP. So in that case, you're going to be in the 90%. Because you're already integrated, right? So you're replacing, in many cases, replacing CPQ. If the configuration is not too onerous, not too crazy, not like building buses or something like that, then you can, you already have the integration to the ERP because you're basically ERP agnostic, right?
Yes, we are.
You would interface to Infor is what we do. We do NetSuite as well. You're in interface to that. SAP, S4HANA, I think, and anyone's Microsoft. It's on Azure platform, so I'm sure it integrates with Dynamics. So basically, you cut out that need to integrate it to the ERP, and such a low level there, 10%. Wow. So you got a CPQ that's not. I don't know what they're doing with what pops out, but maybe they're doing a manual entry in there or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, that makes me sad. 10% number, but I think at 54% plan to, and you're already integrated that way, then you would have it ready to go essentially, regardless of ERP. And I know a lot of companies have multiple ERPs, so you're really set up for a kind of a hybrid cloud environment, right? Because you're on Azure, and then if you're integrating to an ERP that's on Amazon Web Services or something like that, right? Then that's not a problem for you. You're the front end, you're the configuration engine, and the quote is coming not out of the ERP, it's coming out of your tool. And then the order is going into ERP, and you don't touch it. That's the key thing. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to rekey it. You don't have to have anybody else look at it. You know what I mean? And so, so the poor 13%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that have integrated their ERP and CRM. That's also raises my eyebrows a lot. That's a sad number.
It is.
Don't you think?
It is.
They have Salesforce or whatever, and they have S4HANA that should be integrated, I would think, a big CRM maybe they're not dealing with big CRMs. They're dealing with a smaller one, and they're dealing with a smaller ERP for mid-sized manufacturers. So that is not available out of the box, or it's something that they have to do themselves.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Dan, where we'll see that typically. And then, resource constrained teams, like there's a lot on IT, and it becomes what do we prioritize? So being able to have a solution that requires, very little to no customization, is able to easily integrate, is ready out of the box, doesn't need IT to run day to day,
Mhm.
is really critical, because the systems are so complex, and IT is, and those ERP admins and managers, they are spread so thin as well,
Mhm.
especially when you get into the environment like you mentioned with managing multiple ERPs. I want to be sensitive for time, so we'll just kind of start wrapping up here. Just wanted to quick call out this too, of 90% of the manufacturers we surveyed had said that they are, seeing gains from their digital selling and quoting, and that, almost a quarter of them characterize those gains as significant. I know we talk about, and we have seen with our customers, an average of, ROI within, you know, 3 months, once the start. So it's that gains piece is really critical. And those mid-sized team, they can't afford and to wait for, quarters or a year, to be able to implement, go live, and see that ROI in their investments. So we'll just walk quickly through here about who we are, how we work. So we've alluded to different pieces, and Dan, you talked through a little bit this workflow. Here you can see just how seamless, easy that workflow can be, where that buyer is visiting the site, configuring that product for a quote, getting that submitted. Sales is notified. So to your point, they're not having to do that heavy lifting back and forth of coordinating.
Mhm.
And because we're connected with ERP, CRM, that we're able to, and with AI, even get to that BOM level data to make that quote even that much more accurate. And then can handle that discounting with ease as build in the workflows, and that can be approved. And then because Aleran is ready out of the box, and with able to integrate with, say, if you're using Avalara, or you have a transportation management system, or you're using FedEx, we integrate with that. So we're able to cover that full end-to-end process. Anything here that you want to call out, Dan, that you've noticed as notable?
Well, it's really nice that you have the access to and are able to train the AI on ERP data,
Mm-hmm.
bombs, and CRM data, because all that's is linked there. So to be able to take a look at that, and sales get back, something says, I got a quote, but I need to go into the ERP to find out what the bill of material is, and all of those things that it generated, because it's a customized bill of material, right?
Mm-hmm.
That pops out, and they'd have to go in and take a look at it, but they can do that right online. So they can say, oh, wow, okay, so that's all in there as I would expect. And that based on the configuration logic, it as I would expect. And then you do that online, and then the whole review and revise and all of that sort of thing. Click a button, say no, I reject, I revise, I resubmit, I all of that back and forth that would normally happen through what, calls, emails,
Mm-hmm.
fax in some cases. It's not gone in manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
But that would go back and forth. That would be a back and forth process, which takes a
Yeah.
lot of time and is just subject to error and frustration. That all of that being online is really phenomenal. And I would say that as a finance person, that Avalara integration is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
All to get the sales tax on there and everything on online, because it's online ordering. And they even have some tariff stuff now too, which is
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. But anyway, having all that stuff online is phenomenal. There's no part of that process that needs to be taken offline.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you just mentioned that about the tariffs and just even managing all of the different compliances at a local and global level. So yes, Avalara is a great integration and partner for us on that front and for our customers. So just to synthesize here, and then we'll go into the giveaway opportunity. Aleran Connected Commerce, we are here because we're built only for B2B mid-sized manufacturers. So complex sales, complex products, pricing. We're ERP and CRM connected. And we're able to serve that complete quoting and selling cycle from, I like to say, enabling from discoverable, being found in search, including AI search through those digitized product content and catalogs, to quotable, shoppable, shippable, taxable, reorderable, that full cycle.
Well said.
Great. Just for timing, you'll see these as you go ahead, but we have some common use cases here that you can take a look that we certainly see and really fit and serve a need for, including keep going back to that complex, whether it's the complex products, pricing, sales processes, that complex go-to-market, complexity and M&A. That's what we're designed and built for. All right, so I'm going to share this information as a follow-up. And then want to just put the plug out there. We so appreciate everyone who's joined today. And, if you registered and you weren't able to join, you're still going to get this and get this offer, but book a meeting with us by January 15th. So dust it off after you come back, refresh from the holidays, and you'll be entered to win a $75 gift card. So I have my email right here. You'll be getting information again as a follow-up, or you can have that. And we would just love to hear from you, continue the conversation, and then hear from you any questions that you have where we can both help. And Dan, you've been just a source and wealth of information.
Thanks.
I so appreciate all of your experience and perspective. I think you and your team just do an absolutely fantastic job and know so much about this space and bring so much value for your clients and the broader community. So thank you for joining today.
You're welcome.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, you guys.